All right, guys, so we officially have one Democrat in the race. Remember, Joe Biden hasn't officially announced yet, although most people think that he's going to run. But best-selling author Marianne Williamson, who ran last time around as well, she announced she is officially running for president, seeking the Democratic nomination in a speech at Union Station over the weekend. Let's take a listen to a little bit of that.
This system is intrinsically corrupt. We can see it in the broken windows. We can see it in the shattered factories. We can see it in the addiction-addled brokenness of our fellow citizens. We can see it in the despair. We can see it in the addiction. We can see it in the anxiety. We can see it in the depression. And people in this town, if they will not care enough to solve the problems that produces all that despair, half the people in this city don't even notice it. They are so buffered from the ravages of human suffering, they don't even mention the word poor. They don't even mention the word poverty, much less address its deeper causes. So some people in this city just don't even seem to care. Some people in this city, with some very brave exceptions, apparently don't have the spine or the moral courage to fix it. Ladies and gentlemen, let me in there. I will.
So Democrats, fresh off the heels of lots of grandiose rhetoric about how much they care about democracy, how committed they are to the people having a voice.
How's that going?
How are they responding to this? Obviously with complete contempt and dismissal. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen from the Hill. The headline here is Democrats brush off Marianne Williamson's 2024 primary challenge. And there are some incredibly smug and condescending quotes here. Matt Bennett, co-founder of the centrist think tank Third Way, he said, "I hope and expect they will completely ignore it. She is not a credible candidate in any respect. She certainly isn't going to be challenging to win the nomination. If that's the only primary challenge he faces, Joe Biden can rest very easy until the general election." An aide to Congressman Don Beyer said on Twitter, "Hi, AP," in response to an AP article calling her a major Democrat. "Marianne Williamson is not a major Democrat. Thank you for your attention in this matter." And listen, whatever you think of Marianne and her chances here, number one, again, she is actually unopposed at this moment. She is the only Democrat who is in the race. Number two, it's up to the voters to decide. Democrats have already effectively rigged the primary for Joe Biden by putting South Carolina first. They're saying they don't even want to do any debates. So all of their rhetoric about how much they care about democracy, I mean, they're obviously total hypocrites when it comes to them maintaining their own grip on power. And I would also say, your guy here is going to be closer to 90 than he is to 80 by the end of his term. You have a majority of Democrats and an overwhelming majority of the country who are like, please don't run. So save me your like smug commentary about how solid he is in terms of his standing vis-a-vis the American people.
Not just that. I mean, look, Marianne was able to get to the debate stage as a Democratic candidate at a time when senators like Cory Booker and many others were not able to. This is a person who was able to raise the requisite number of funds and to actually hit the requisite 2% in polling to get there. Trump, I mean, right now, Biden is actually acting weaker than Trump. Trump is actually willing to have these Republican candidate debates. We have GOP primary debates, which are already being negotiated with the major cable news networks, where we would anticipate a Nikki Haley, a Vivek Ramaswamy, or any of these people, if they do qualify, to head up against him. So why don't you put yourself up in the same way? Jimmy Carter actually famously won his challenge while he was president in the debate stage against Ted Kennedy. And, you know, the Carter campaign says that he was worse off for it. I'm not so sure, because it actually got him in some fighting spirit when he was able to go up against Reagan. Now, obviously, he lost.
Jimmy Carter didn't need any help losing.
No,
he lost all on his own.
He lost right on all his own. It's a good point. And I'm just generally of the opinion, do you remember the first debate between Obama and Mitt Romney where Obama lost? I mean, it was terrible. And one of the reasons that came forward is Obama was in a bubble for 4 years. He had not debated anybody. Whereas when he was the actual candidate, he did like 17, 18 primary debates in 2008. That made him sharp and ready to take on McCain. So even a challenge where you presume that the candidate is going to win anyways, it's actually very good for them, by and large, to actually go through some competitive process.
This is what we were talking about earlier with Ron DeSantis and how he's doing himself a disservice by keeping himself away from any potentially adversarial media and being very careful and very cautious about the interviews that he takes on, because you need practice. Ultimately, you really need practice in order to be able to effectively compete in an election. I mean, and Biden didn't really get any last time around because of COVID that essentially rescued him and he could kind of hide in the basement for most of the general election. He does very limited and very, cautious media appearances as well. So yeah, he could use that blade sharpened, no doubt about it, if that's even possible at this point. And if they were not, if they really felt secure about their position vis-a-vis Joe Biden, then they wouldn't be worried about Marianne Williamson. Look, she dropped down before the vote, after Iowa last time around. Yeah, she made it to the debate stage, but she wasn't a huge factor. Like, this is fine. We're not worried about it. The fact that you've had this incredibly fragile response to her, I think is really interesting. And they have a big problem on their hands in New Hampshire in particular. Those people are pissed about the rewriting of the primary calendar because you have effectively stripped all of the sort of power and relevance of that entire state, and especially of the party faithful within the state of New Hampshire, who have openly come out, including a sitting member of Congress, Democratic member of Congress, and said, we want primary challengers to Biden. We welcome primary challengers to Biden. We think he's going to have a problem in this state. Wasn't just these quotes in the Hill, though. Of course, MSNBC handling Marianne in a very similar way. Let's take a listen to their coverage of her announcement.
I don't consider Marianne Williamson to be much of a threat. She's a spiritualizer and a 2020 also ran who may not even make the debate stage, let's be honest. I think the best way to handle her is not to address her at all, because I don't think many people consider her to be a major Democrat. And age is a concern for some, for Biden, but she's 70 years old. So she doesn't exactly represent a new generation of leadership either. And she has no platform to speak of other than some nebulous Department of Peace. And so she's not a threat to Biden.
Okay. Number one, you don't get to decide whether she's a major Democrat. The idea is the people get to decide and then, we'll have their verdict. Number two, the part that actually really pissed me off was her saying she doesn't have a platform, because that is just factually, that's just completely, utterly false. She has a platform. Whether you like her platform or not, you can look at it, you can disagree with it, but she's been very clear and very specific about what she stands for.
Well, also, 70 is a hell of a lot different from 82, okay? I mean, like, on a scale, but 70 is actually younger than every single other person in all of Democratic leadership today.
Well, and not to mention...
I'm not defending it, I'm just saying.
Listen.
Yeah.
Watch Marianne's speech.
Yeah.
No teleprompter, no notes. And it was electric. People in the room were clearly really loving it and really enthusiastic about it. They do not want, so they've already said they aren't going to have a debate. We'll see if they're able to hold to that, if there's enough public pressure to force it. But they don't want that comparison because all elderly people are not the same, right? Trump, I can't stand the man. He's still clearly got it, and he's still got a lot of energy. It boggles the mind given how unhealthy his lifestyle is, his weight, his age, all of the rest. But, not everybody is created equal. People obviously go through, life transitions and phases and sundowning at different points in time. And so I just will hold that out for you. Lastly, Marianne had an interview with ABC News over the weekend where she got asked some questions about exactly these topics. Let's take a listen to how she responded.
This is a democracy. This is not about what I think is wrong. Obviously, I believe the American people should be offered an agenda for genuine, fundamental economic reform. And it should be the voters who decide. It should not be the DNC that decides. It should be the voters who decide. That is what a democracy is.
Do you expect that Biden will debate you?
He certainly should debate me. It's called democracy, and I'm running as well.
And what about this notion of taking New Hampshire out of its position as first? You're going to New Hampshire.
I can tell you that New Hampshireites are not happy about that. The fact that
so will you be competing in the New Hampshire primary, even though the DNC has said...
This is a democracy. This is the thing. The DNC should not be rigging this system. They don't even pretend anymore. They're not even covert about their swaying the primary season. They're very overt about it. They're going to get...
So that's what's going on, is they're rigging the system for Biden.
They even admit that, Jonathan.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, she's not wrong. I think a lot of it comes down to what she said, which is it's up to the voters to decide.
Yeah.
And yeah, the New Hampshire point, I think, is very important. As you said, people are really pissed off in New Hampshire that they got dinged. At the same time, though, I can't help but just say, like, they have rigged the primary so well and good for Biden.
Oh,
I just don't know if it's possible.
It's there, but listen.
Yeah.
the reason they have gone to such extraordinary lengths is because they can read the polls. They see that there is a majority of Democrats who were like, we would really like some other options. Marianne's the only option that has stepped up. So it's very likely to be a one-on-one race here. New Hampshire is kind of welcoming her in with open arms. It's not the first primary anymore, but it is an early state. And so they have to be worried about appearing vulnerable at the very least, even if they aren't worried about him ultimately winning the nomination. And again, he's not even in the race yet, so we'll see when he actually gets in.
We'll see what happens, as Trump used to famously say.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us. And if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.